Hi all, dear listeners. Welcome to this new episode of my podcast, A Digital Tomorrow. Today, I'm joined by Michelle Chan. Michelle is co-chairing the InsurTech committee at the FinTech Association of Hong Kong, and she's also working as head of marketing in one of Hong Kong's virtual banks. So Michelle, welcome to my show.
Well, thanks for the invitation indeed. My pleasure.
Well, it's actually my pleasure. Michelle and I are going to talk today about banking, virtual banking, the future of insurance, many interesting topics about which she's a huge expert. So without digging deeper into these topics, could you please share with me and my listeners a bit more about your personal journey? For example, what made you decide to enter the fintech world?
Oh, sure. Well, my career history is a bit long, but I try to make a very quick summary over it. I started my career in the tech and telecom industry with passion and specialization in driving cross-domain business innovation, leveraging on technology and telecom service. FinTech is just one of the many tech used to be on my portfolio under the enterprise telecom solution development, commercialization, and marketing. I have been with high net worth telecom solution business, enterprise business, loyalty business, and eventually got a chance to set foot on mobile payment, mobile wallet, digital insurance, and most recently, digital banking. I would say I haven't really done any specific planning to enter fintech at the very beginning. Oh, well, who can? Because I guess 20 years ago, the term fintech was never exist. But when I look back, every dot seems well connected from the very beginning. So now I am in fintech, and I still find it very interesting because there are new technology emerging, new business case emerging every day.
I fully agree with you. Fintech is indeed a very new area, so I guess it's quite difficult for all of us who joined fintech a while ago to actually have made that decision to consciously enter fintech. Now, I guess it's part of a journey that brought us there, sometimes even without actually wanting that. No.
Yeah, like the time I was being invited into the fintech association, that was very early in the fintech development in Hong Kong. I would say it's almost 2017 or 2016. I can't remember exactly the year. But then at the very beginning, the fintech ecosystem in Hong Kong was just being built since the Hong Kong government actually set even assistance program to actually attract more fintech related startup to set their foot in Hong Kong, and then Hong Kong MA start to actually have a fintech facilitation office. And then actually the growth of fintech in Hong Kong, it seems in a tremendous way, which is good.
No, no, of course. I mean, it's very good. And now that you mentioned fintech in Hong Kong, the FinTech Association of Hong Kong, and how the Hong Kong government has been promoting fintech in the region, I think it would be good to talk about Hong Kong's fintech scene. For example, I mean, since you are an expert now. So, for example, according to you, what are Hong Kong's fintech scene's strengths and opportunities? How can Hong Kong leverage the Greater Bay Area to keep thriving and improve, even if it's possible?
Yeah, that's a good question indeed. Fintech started really relatively early in Hong Kong, I would say, in particular among the APAC region. Of course, except China. Since you have mentioned, China actually is much more advanced than us in terms of fintech. Our role, I mean, our strong role as international financial center as the well-known regulatory environment actually gives us a very strong foundation for leading the fintech development among the region even. The recent development is lagging behind a bit though, due to a mix of reasons which I'm not going to elaborate. However, there shall still be way for us to pick up the speed of Singapore and other Southeast Asia cities with enough government support in terms of regulation, tax, talent development, etc. And you just mentioned about GBA as well, and GBA definitely means a very critical opportunity for Hong Kong as well. The reason is Hong Kong's population actually is very limited. So with the GBA support, I mean, counting Hong Kong as one of the GBA cities, the larger population and talent resources are no doubt critical to boost Hong Kong's business growth in terms of the economic of scale. By combining the advantage and resources of the whole GBA, we'll be able to have a level playing field with our regional competitors. This is my view.
No, I mean, I agree. I think the GBA creates great opportunities for Hong Kong in many areas. I was writing, for example, a while ago on the Wealth Management Connect scheme, but I think that's just one of many interesting initiatives for Hong Kong, because I mean, there are many, undoubtedly.
Sure. And we are also looking forward to the Insurance Connect and a lot other FinTech or pan-regional initiative, which be able to give the city, I mean Hong Kong, more opportunity, because we, on one hand, we actually try to attract much more FinTech startup to just set their business in Hong Kong. On the other, I guess we have to make sure there is enough resources or enough market size to sustain the business.
Well, thank you for sharing these thoughts. And before moving forward to the virtual banking part, I wanted to talk to you a bit about insurance. You just mentioned insurance now. And as I said before, you are co-chairing the InsurTech committee at the FinTech Association of Hong Kong. So I wanted to ask you, for example, what do you think the future of insurance will look like? And what are the advantages, or what's the potential of InsurTech as an area?
Well, the future of insurance, that's a very interesting question indeed. Well, how should I start? Well, I would say insurance, like any other financial service in Hong Kong, used to be very closed or non-transparent. The history of insurance industry in Hong Kong is long. The insurance penetration, I would say, relatively, when we try to compare in other APAC city, even in China, the insurance protection penetration is relatively high. So the distribution model, the operation model is actually quite stable. People actually lacking the drive to change and transform. But then I would say in the recent year, at least in the recent 3 to 4 years, as long as I have been with the insurance industry, and I also have been with the InsurTech committee, I have observed a lot of changes actually across different insurer in Hong Kong, and also the vendor as well. Well, in the past, all those big insurance companies trying not to change any of their model. When they are talking about FinTech, InsurTech, yes, they would actually put some investment to just give the company a try. But all the projects are pilot, I would say, but not until now, just within this 2 years. Actually, I know a lot of friends working in big and small insurance company. Actually, they all are taking the advantage of the COVID time, actually implement different type of technology in terms of the InsurTech. Some are actually invest a lot on the operation side, the tech infrastructure, how to digitalize the whole customer journey. Some actually invest a lot on the front end, on the distribution end, how to enable more ecosystem partner to distribute simple and non-traditional insurance product. And some like FWD, the company I used to work, actually they invest quite a lot in terms of the customer experience over different customer touch point. So they try to simplify the policy paper, the communication, so to make sure the customer actually won't find all the information non-transparent and easier to understand. So that is all the interesting observation I've been through all this 2 or 3 years. And I would say in the future, transparency can only be insurance can only be much more transparent, more simple, and more customer-centric.
I see. I see. So based on what you said, I would say that, well, I could summarize by saying maybe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that according to you, maybe like the main advantages of using tech in the insurance sector are precisely this idea of enhancing transparency, efficiency, and making this process much more customer-oriented.
Yeah, I guess the whole fintech industry is trying to do the same, even for digital banking, even for digital booker, whatever. What they're trying to do actually is trying to simplify the customer experience, because it is the edge they can provide when they try to compete with the traditional incumbent.
I agree with you. And I think this is going to bring us to the other part of our discussion, which is another area in which you are also an expert, and that area is virtual banking and, well, and banking in general. Maybe I should start by asking you a much broader question whose answer, it might be a bit difficult, but still I want to try it. And I wanted to ask you, how do you foresee the future of banking? I know that you don't have a crystal ball, so no one can know for sure, but what are your thoughts on this?
Sure, I'm happy to share. In particular, after 2 years working in a virtual bank, I actually got some personal experience about that. So in terms of the future of banking, I'm indeed a big believer in open banking. Banking used to be a very much closed industry in the past, like what I just mentioned. For insurance, like what all the other financial institutions did, all are the same. With its exclusive nature granted from the regulatory body to offer financial service, customer used to queue up to request for the service, but not vice versa. Transparency is the least they need to care. However, with the inevitable digitalization trend, all industry now goes towards e-commerce, insurance, investment, stock trading, etc. All goes digital, and no way banking can escape. Ecosystem partnership is always a term financial industry mentioning now. It is very popular. All the financial institution try to set a foot on it, try to mention on it, but there is only a few who can actually manipulate well. So with the maturity of the regulatory framework and the tech infrastructure, I would say open banking, distribute banking, embed banking is going to be the trend. Banking service no longer limited to be offered inside a bank or within the territory of the bank, but everywhere along the customer journey where any particular banking service product will be required. And that's why Hong Kong MA also push the Open API framework. They set a guideline last year, and now the insurance authority also follow. So that's the trend of the future of banking and future of financial service, I would say.
And would you say that Hong Kong is an easy or a hard market in which to go digital?
Sorry?
No, I mean, Hong Kong. Yes. Would you say that Hong Kong is an easy market or a hard market in which to go digital?
I guess it is never be easy for digital business to be successfully launched in Hong Kong. Well, it is not only digital banking or digital financial services, all form of digital actually is not easy because the investment in technology actually is huge in terms of the money, in terms of the resources. So usually it would need a big population, a big economy of scale in terms of making sure the business be able to get a return or have ensured the ROI be happen as soon as possible. In Hong Kong, the population, as I mentioned earlier, is not actually big enough to sustain a big or huge technology investment for digital business. So when you mention about e-commerce, in China, there may be a lot of successful e-commerce platform. In Southeast Asia, a lot of e-commerce platform. But in Hong Kong, we can identify a few, but only a few now, just after the COVID, because people can't go out, and so the e-commerce environment just be a little bit better. And not to mention digital distribution of insurance, digital distribution of banking service, because the financial industry, the financial service actually got a very good footprint and penetration in Hong Kong. People are so used to the existing way to get the service already. So I would not say the opportunity is not exist, but then that may not be big enough to justify all the huge technology investment. And that's why GBA actually give us the edge.
Mm-hmm. I see. And well, you talked before about the future of banking in general, open banking, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on an aspect of virtual banks, not just in Hong Kong, but in general. Do you think that virtual banks in the future, when they become more established across like several jurisdictions, they will just complement the incumbents, traditional banks, or do you think they will become like actual competitors? Because so far, virtual banks are, of course, thriving throughout the world, but most of them are still at a very initial stage. So how do you think they will evolve in the future?
I see. It depending on where you're talking about. In developing country, we be for sure have a potential to become customers' major bank. For developed country, it depending on how rapid those traditional banks transform themselves to become more customer-centric. I can actually name a few example. Indeed, when you look at UK or when you look at Germany, I have some friends living there. It is the country, it is the city where the virtual bank actually developed quite well. But when we look back the situation in Hong Kong, the VB actually is struggling, I would say, because none of the VB actually break even yet. So the environment is competitive because the population is limited. As what I mentioned, investment in digital actually is huge, in particular in digital banking, because all things we invest have to be banking grade in terms of security, stability, etc. So the investment never be limited. So all the virtual bank actually need to invest a lot in terms of talent training, talent hiring, system setup, technical infrastructure, etc. So how to make sure they can have enough return to justify all the investment actually is a question. And on parallel, why I mentioned developed country like Hong Kong may not be able to actually provide a very good platform for so many virtual banks to make profit, is because the banking penetration actually is very good. Every person actually at least have one or two bank account already before the virtual bank launch. So this is really a challenge. All the virtual bank actually need to invest a lot in terms of technology to set those basic things up, and then those virtual banks still need to invest in particular further for promotion to give incentive for the customer to just experience how customer-centric, how different the service actually is. So I would say it is difficult for virtual bank to actually replace traditional bank in Hong Kong or in those well-developed country. But in developing country like Indonesia, like Thailand, yes, in developed country, but then the traditional banking service were very much not customer-centric, and their digitalization or evolution was not that advanced, then probably virtual bank actually got the edge to further develop and be a threat to traditional bank.
Mm-hmm. Now that you mentioned banking penetration as well as developing and developed countries, I think that you raised a very interesting topic, which is that of financial inclusion. And that's something that I find very interesting, and it's a topic about which I've done extensive research about how virtual banking or central bank digital currencies and others may be helpful to promote financial inclusion in certain countries. And actually, as a matter of fact, according to the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, they mentioned, and I quote, that the development of virtual banks will promote fintech and innovation in Hong Kong and offer a new kind of customer experience. And they also said that in addition, virtual banks can help promote financial inclusion as they normally target the retail segment, including small and medium enterprises. Financial inclusion, I know, can be analyzed and understood in many different ways. I mean, financial inclusion can be applied, of course, to the idea of allowing unbanked people to become part of the financial sector. But financial inclusion as well has another aspect, which might be maybe the one more applicable to Hong Kong, which is that one to allow those maybe smaller companies whose access to credit might be more difficult to precisely get access to credit and other services. So, what do you think about the potential role of virtual banks in promoting financial inclusion, both in Hong Kong and in other countries?
Well, it is a mandate for WeBe to drive financial inclusion when Hong Kong MA firstly introduced the WeBe license in the market. With the support from the more advanced technology, many processes can now be automated and simplified, and one with a lower cost. In Hong Kong in particular, SME non-business, for example, may need a lot of manual verification and risk controlling process in the past. So that's why traditional bank only be able to allocate part of the resources to serve not all the SME, but just very limited one. But now with the open API with data and collection and collaboration with other ecosystem players, whole process can theoretically be done automatically with risk and credit assessment done more precisely through digital banking system. In particular, WeBe, because all the WeBe actually almost trying to set foot on the SME business. They invest a lot, but of course, we didn't see many of them launch related product yet. But as far as I know, they are all developing. The reason why I said theoretically is the tech is ready, but it needs money and time to build a commercially and operationally ready one. I'm expecting more of such system be ready and launch in 2020, 2022 or 2023. So we can see how to make a more precise comment over whether we can fulfill the role of driving financial inclusion, in particular in Hong Kong. But if you ask, financial inclusion or in other cities like Southeast Asia, like what I just mentioned, Indonesia, Thailand, India, that sort of things, well, that's no doubt WeBe can actually help to drive the financial inclusion, because as I mentioned, in those cities, in those regions, the banking service penetration actually is very low. A lot of people are still unbanked. So with the setup of the braces by WeBe, that's already, in particular, Indonesia, that's a proven actually model for WeBe's role in driving financial inclusion.
No, I agree. I mean, there's a huge difference when it comes to the percentage of banking penetration in, let's say, Hong Kong or Singapore, and then in other countries like Indonesia, Philippines, India. So I think that perhaps even though financial inclusion can be understood in other ways in Hong Kong, I think it's in those countries, that the ones we said before, as well as Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sub-Saharan Africa, where I think this idea of promoting financial inclusion makes most sense.
Yeah, sure.
And well, I wanted to ask you as well about new technologies, because I mean, we all know that, that banking can incorporate or add the use of new technologies. So I wanted to ask you, what role do you think that certain technologies, like for example, artificial intelligence, will play in the future of banking and virtual banking?
Well, My quick answer to this question is all kind of technology which can automate and simplify the existing banking operation and can make customer experience more seamless can play a role in the future of banking. AI, open API, blockchain, all of them. Technology is a tool, a mean, but never a goal. So all means can help the industry to achieve the goal shall have a role.
Mhm. I agree. Thank you for sharing. And well, now that you mentioned blockchain as well, I wanted to ask you about one of blockchain's applications, well, maybe the most famous one, which is cryptocurrencies. I wanted to ask you about, well, given the rising importance of cryptocurrencies across many jurisdictions, do you think that cryptocurrencies will play an important role in the future of banking, and especially in the future of virtual banking, like to the point, or maybe I should say in other words, do you think that it will become like much more common to see virtual banks allowing its customers to buy, withdraw, trade cryptos, or do you think we are not actually going to get there, at least massively?
That's another good question. Everyone is talking about crypto nowadays, and indeed it's more than just a topic with financial world. E-commerce platform, art world, insurance industry, all be able to link with crypto. I was just in another webinar yesterday talking about crypto and insurance. There are already quite some insurer in Switzerland, in the European region actually start accepting crypto, accepting Bitcoin to be more specific, as the insurance premium. So I would say crypto actually is not only limited to digital bank or in digital financial institution, I would say, because it is a currency. So it is going to be a fact, as no matter how complicated it is, anyway, we can't actually avoid it. While the political, legal, and environmental front pose uncertainty and challenge on crypto, technological, economic, and social factors will keep driving cryptocurrency adoption. I don't think we can avoid it. I don't think any regulator can avoid it. That's why when you look back, 2 years ago, all regulators actually set rules to not allowing crypto, but now more and more regulators actually deliver more study in terms of how to adjust and fine-tune the regulation to embrace crypto. Even in Hong Kong is the same case. So I would say crypto actually is something unavoidable. And it would never be limited to only VB. But in terms of when, we will see, because actually a number of factors actually is affecting the speed of its deployment, like what I just mentioned, the legal, political, regulatory, etc. But then for sure, it is something actually we need to interact with and deal with in every aspect of our life.
No, I agree with your approach. I think that cryptocurrencies have become much more mainstream, especially these last 2 years, but there are many things to consider. And of course, the legal regulatory environment plays a huge role in here as well. So that's why I fully agree with you. I mean, making general statements is kind of complicated because the way, let's say that, well, Hong Kong or Singapore face cryptocurrencies might not be the same way that other countries do. So you need to, well, to be careful and watch, like, for each country's regulatory stance towards this new phenomenon.
Sure. My view is that sooner or later, we would actually need to embrace it, even for Hong Kong MA and a lot of regulators in the region. At the very beginning, they feel hesitate, but then now they change. I guess it is also good from the customer point of view, because regulator originally blocked all type of crypto, but then people, the consumer actually can get their way to invest in crypto. So instead of block them, the regulator may consider how crypto can actually more efficiently and securely regulate in the region. So to issue a license for different crypto platform to ensure the consumer be well protected.
Mm-hmm. I agree. No, and besides, I feel like initially crypto it was unlimited, but it was more focused on people like trading cryptos, and that was pretty much all. But right now we are reaching a point, as you said before, where we are seeing in certain countries cryptos or certain cryptos like Bitcoin. Well, being paid as insurance premiums, or people who get their salaries or part of their salaries in crypto. So they're becoming much more widely used, not just like geographically speaking, but also when it comes to the range of like products and possibilities they offer to customers. So I think that's why, well, a proper regulation will be necessary, like everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we are reaching the end of this episode. It's been an absolute pleasure, Michelle, to host you today. I got to learn a lot from you discussing, well, fintech in Hong Kong, insurance, virtual banking. So, I mean, for that, I would like to thank you for coming to my podcast and for spending this half an hour with me.
Well, thanks for the invitation again, and I enjoyed the talk very much.
Thank you. And well, to all my listeners, thank you for listening to this episode. And please stay tuned for the next ones. Thank you and bye.
Okay, bye bye.